Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews and another Versus Night. Tonight, I will be doing a comparison between My Bloody Valentine 2009 versus Friday the 13th 2009. Now, before I get started on this one, there's a reason why I'm doing this one, and most of you who know these two films will know why I'm doing this. But for those of you who don't know, the TV series Supernatural in 2009 went on a bit of a hiatus, so Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki, the stars of that series, decided, whatever reason, to go and make two separate slasher films, each of them individually playing in competing slasher films. Jensen Ackles was the lead of My Bloody Valentine, while Jared Padalecki was the lead of Friday the 13th. And out of the two of them, I think on this one, Jared Padalecki came off as better in his portrayal of his character. Jensen Ackles' character is dark, brooding, mostly just moody and not putting much personality out there. Meanwhile, Jared Padalecki's character is a very intriguing character who is searching for his lost sister. And you are fully invested in his search for his sister in this film.
I would probably leave soon before I get pissed off and...
Yeah?
Yeah.
What happens then?
Hey, look, take it easy.
So, for the leads in these two films, and the reason I'm doing this one between the two supernatural actors, I'm going to give this one to Friday the 13th with Jared Padalecki. Now let's move on to the killer. My Bloody Valentine, the killer is the Miner, as played by Chris Cornell through most of the movie. Friday the 13th's killer is Jason Voorhees, of course, and he is played by Derek Mears. Now with this one, Chris Cornell does a great job playing the Miner. He's very intense, he's very brutal with his attacks on the people when he attacks. But then the awkward reveal of who the killer is, which it wasn't who it ends up being revealed to be, which was Jensen Ackles' character. He wasn't really in the costume as the Miner throughout the film. It was Chris Cornell. And Chris Cornell, like I said, does a good performance, but the reveal of it being Jensen Ackles just didn't work for me. Whereas Jason Voorhees with Derek Mears, he's Jason, and he is a damn good Jason. Derek Mears is probably the most scary Jason that has ever been in a Friday the 13th movie, because the character is not dumb. He is a very intelligent, smart, calculating killer in that film. So this one I'm going to give to Friday the 13th as well, with Jason Voorhees as played by Derek Mears. Alright, now let's move on to supporting. Now, My Bloody Valentine supporting cast includes Jamie King, Kerr Smith, Betsy Rue, Megan Boone, Tom Atkins, and Kevin Feige. Now, the supporting for Friday the 13th is Danielle Panabaker, Amanda Rigetti, Travis Van Winkle, Juliana Guil, Willa Ford, and Richard Burgi. Now, supporting on My Bloody Valentine includes the lovely Jamie King and a great performance by Kerr Smith as Axel playing the sheriff in there. And I thought he was a much more interesting and good character as opposed to Jensen Ackles' brooding variation on his character. I liked Kerr Smith's character better in there, and I thought he did a great job. Betsy Rue and Megan Boone are fine in their roles. But while we're on the supporting characters, let's get into the nudity in this film, in these two films, because with slasher films, that's something that was lacking prior to these films, because at this point in time, a lot of the slasher films of the time were going PG-13 for whatever fucking reason. And I think that's just a stupid idea. I mean, they're slasher films. They're not supposed to be PG-13. You know, it's bad enough that the MPAA was neutering these films when they were R-rated, but then you go ahead and release a film that is PG-13? Come on. These films were aimed toward adults, so they should have always been R-rated. Whereas these two films did revert back to those 80s style mentality of extreme violence and nudity. With Friday the 13th being probably the one that has more topless nudity going on in it, with America Olivo getting topless in the tent in the opening sequence, and then of course you have Willa Ford water skiing topless, and then the big one where you have the full-on naked nude scene with Julianne Guil and her character of Bree having the sex scene with Travis Van Winkle's Trent. But My Bloody Valentine isn't without nudity, but its nudity is centered around one major sequence in which this occurs, and that is with Betsy Rue's character, where she is pretty much fully nude for a good 5 minutes or more in this film. So I guess it pretty much offsets as far as the nudity goes. But Tom Atkins, wow, that's awesome. And Kevin Feige, same way. I mean, those two are two great actors. On the other side of the spectrum, though, on Friday the 13th, it's got Danielle Panabaker, which is, she's awesome. The thing that pisses me off about Friday the 13th, which holds that one back, is that they make Amanda Rigetti, who should have died earlier in the film, the final girl instead of Danielle Panabaker. Danielle Panabaker ends up getting killed in Friday the 13th. And it's, as much as a likable a character as she was, there's no reason for her to have been killed the way they did. I know they did it for a big surprise, shock kill that you weren't expecting, but I didn't like it. And then the other really good actor in here was Richard Burgi, which isn't a really big name, but he was really good as the deputy character in here for a while, until they did him kind of like they did Daniel Panabaker and killed him off. This one, just on the sheer badassery of having Tom Atkins and Kevin Feige in the movie, I'm going to go with My Bloody Valentine on this one. All right. Now let's move on to the kills. My Bloody Valentine has some gnarly 3D kills and special effects that are very, very well done. Excellent work on the effects in this film. I only wish I would have went and seen this movie in the theaters, because it was originally aired on the theaters in 3D. And I had went and seen Fright Night, and that was in 3D. And, you know, normally 3D, they're not made 3D. They're just, hey, we're going to make the movie 3D just to jump up our prices on our tickets. Whereas this was actually just like Fright Night and was shot for 3D, for the 3D process. So I would have loved to have seen some of the stuff that, you know, these 3D effects, because they were effective enough in 2D, you know. So, whereas on Friday the 13th, it has some really good kills too. You have Travis Van Winkle's little dipshit asshole of a character. His death scene is pretty good. Willa Ford's little scene where she's hiding under the pier and Jason just drives the machete down into her head and kills her when she thinks she's safe. That was a pretty good kill. And then, of course, the sleeping bag kill where the girl is burned in her sleeping bag when it was hung upside down over the fire. But for the most part, most of the kills in Friday the 13th are pretty lackluster. There's nothing really, really special about them. So I'm going to give the effects and the kills to My Bloody Valentine. So that brings us to a tie. It's 2-2 right now. So I can't end this on a tie, so I am going to go one more category to see if we can get a clear-cut winner, which we have to with this. If it's 2-2, next one that wins is the winner. So we're going to go with direction next. And My Bloody Valentine was directed by Patrick Lussier, while Friday the 13th was directed by Marcus Nispel. Now, I have always liked Patrick Lussier as a director of photography and editor before he even directed anything. He's very talented in that aspect. And whenever he did start directing, he did the same, you know, he used those skills that he's used in movies otherwise, whether it be as a director of photography or as an editor on his own films. And that worked well for him in films like Dracula 2000 and other films. I love his visuals, the way he knows what he wants to do, and he does it well. So this film was very similar to some of those other films that he had done. Very talented director. Whereas Marcus Nispel really was impressive on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That film was well directed, well acted, well put together. He did a great job on that one. I do not think that he did as good of a job on Friday the 13th. I think Friday the 13th is a great Friday the 13th film, but it does have its own little issues. And I don't think Marcus does as good a job directing Friday the 13th as he did on Texas Chainsaw. So I am going to give this one to My Bloody Valentine for the win for My Bloody Valentine 2009 with a very close score of 3-2. Wow, this one was an intense one. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with my rating on this? Or do you think Friday the 13th is the better film out of these two? Let me know in those comments down below. And as usual, if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell icon so you can be notified about future videos just like this one. And while you're by the subscribe button, don't forget to click that join button and become a Dark Knight fan. Alright, it's the end of another Versus Night. I hope you will join me tomorrow for another horror movie night. Thanks for watching.